Welcome, coffee enthusiasts, to Brewing for Equity, the podcast brought to you by the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity. Join us as we embark on a flavorful journey through the world of coffee, exploring every nuance and perspective through the eyes of Black and Brown people in the industry. This podcast is a space dedicated to amplifying the voices and experiences of those who contribute to the rich tapestry of the coffee world. We are committed to building a racially diverse and equitable coffee industry. So let's brew conversations, share ideas, and foster a community centered around the love of coffee.
Hello, good people listening to the CCRE podcast. We are focusing on benefits of strategic planning retreats for coffee industry members and organizations today. My name is Areli Gradsky. I'm coming to you from Durham, North Carolina. I am the co-owner of Little Waves Coffee Roasters and Cocoa Cinnamon, and have been working in the industry since 2009. And I also have here LaDora Carter, who can introduce herself.
Thanks, Areli. Hello, everyone. My name is LaDora Carter, and I am based in Richmond, Virginia. I am the owner and head roaster of Coffee Liberated, which is a small batch coffee roasting company, uplifting those special sacred moments cultivated over coffee and the history of Africa and the African diaspora. And I'm so excited to be with you all.
I love that. I need to get better at my rooted introduction. Just very factual. I really appreciate hearing other people introduce themselves, because I learn so much about what details they add. I think it also says a lot about a person and in a very short period of time. So I really appreciate that, LaDora.
Thank you so much.
Of course. So the CCRE did a board retreat in March 28th through the 30th. Both LaDora and I were there, and we kind of just want to digest what happened at this retreat. That was very wonderful. The environment was really beautiful, very zen, felt very calm. Could definitely feel just the right energy, I feel like, for a retreat that is about strategic planning, especially for an organization that is geared towards creating a pathway for racial equity within the coffee industry.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You got any initial thoughts about that, LaDora?
Yeah, I think, when I first arrived, I'm in Richmond, which is just about 45 minutes from Gloucester. And so it wasn't, the drive is always beautiful, heading to the water. But upon my arrival, my initial thoughts were rest. Really paused for a moment to slow down and sort of take a few deep breaths in and out, and just really take a look at the space, the landscape. It's a stunning view just off of the York River, but very, very serene, but also too feeling like an energetic space at the same time, a strategically energetic space. And I think throughout the weekend, we individually learned more about the history of the particular conference center that we had the retreat at. And it just got even more special and powerful at the same time. So it's beautiful for me.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. So the place we went to is called the Gloucester Institute, which is located in Gloucester County in Virginia. You said it was like a 45-minute drive for you?
Yeah, 45-minute, and that's without traffic. So
yeah, I think I made it in maybe 3 hours from Durham, which is not a bad drive at all. Once I started getting into like the back roads, it actually became really fun just because it was mostly highway. And then, yeah, that like what you just described, it was just like, it was really interesting because I guess it had just rained as well. And so there was a lot of flooding in the roads that were leading to the institute. And it was, I don't know, just this feeling of like, where am I going? But then you get there and it's just like, I don't know, like just like you said, like very serene. Seeing the York River from the place was really beautiful. You get there and it's like a whole campus. It feels like a whole campus. There's like a tennis court. There's several like dormitories, and then there's like a big house, and that house is like facing the river. And yeah, it just felt, you could feel the history, and you could feel even leading up to I'm not as well versed in Virginia, but we live so close, right? Being in North Carolina, I felt like I was driving through history, and it was really beautiful. But yeah, why were we there?
Yeah, I definitely, I agree with you. I had a moment. Well, I came in, I think, later in the evening on Friday, and it was the sun was setting, so it was beautiful. The entire drive was beautiful. But I took a few turns, and I kind of felt like I was heading towards a dead end.
Yeah.
But it eventually, turned out to be the campus. But in history taught here, really, and all over, I really didn't know much about Gloucester, Virginia, and the immense, rich African American history that resides there. And so, throughout my career in justice and within the nonprofit sector in Richmond, I had become familiar with how deeply historic of a space Gloucester, Virginia is, and have heard of Holly Knoll, but I didn't know much. I feel like I had a surface level understanding of what it was. But again, once I arrived and things began to unfold, the history throughout the weekend, it became even more special. But for those that don't know much about Gloucester, or specifically the Gloucester Institute's Holly Knoll property, it was built in 1935, just off the York River, to really be the retirement home of Dr. Robert Moten and his wife, Jenny Moten. And so Dr. Robert Moten was the second president of Tuskegee Institute, and was also the successor of Booker T. Washington. So he's very much well known as an essential educator in the area. But what makes this space so special was that after the death of Dr. Robert Moten and his wife, their son-in-law actually continued the space and the legacy of their roles in education, opened up the space as a conference center. And so all types of civil rights activists, including John Lewis, Martin Luther King Jr., they all came there, have meetings, really strategic meetings. And, this is the part of history that I didn't know. So once I found out, throughout the weekend, I was kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
I got chills to know that, how sacred and special of a place that it was. But yeah, to continue, the United Negro College Fund was actually conceived there, which I didn't know. And a lot of the planning on the segregated lunch counters and, the protesting seen in civil rights done there as well. And the framework for the Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision was formulated there. So when I mention that, what sort of comes to mind for you? Like how does that make you feel? Or, even learning that over the weekend, what came up for you? What emotions?
Yeah, I definitely felt that the space was like really cared for. And I think that is like honestly like what I was feeling energetically. Like I think the current owner, like, I think came to one of the days and like just basically asked, like, do you have everything that you need? You know, like, they're like, we want you to feel like you're right at home and like you're not needing anything. And I think one of the things that I felt like, I don't know, just like all of that history and just feeling like the legacy of that space and how much like intention has been put into cultivating like thought leaders and, yeah, justice workers. And it just felt immense. It felt really ancestral, and it felt really warm. I definitely slept like a baby. I remember like really noticing that. Like, I woke up really rested, and I just feel like, yeah, the legacy continues of like wanting to create the space where you're not really needing any of your basic needs so that you can just focus on the work ahead of you, which is like really rare. And I don't know, like, I don't think that there are a lot of spaces out there that are like that, but centered around like Black and people of color, you know, like, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like it added another layer for me in terms of like the safety element of like, oh, like, I feel like this isn't just like another retreat, you know, like, like I don't know how to phrase it. Yeah, it just felt very rooted, I think is the word I'm looking for. It felt really rooted in, and especially like the perfect location for the CCRE to do its strategic planning for the year. And not just the year. I mean, we did focus on, you know, what are the things that we can tackle this year in a way that is feasible, because that's the key, right? Like, trying to tackle things that nobody really has the time for makes it feel like you can feel a little defeated. And so like really narrowing down like what are the things that we can focus on and really like achieve within the year felt really good. And I don't know, just like thinking about all of the work that has been done there already, like, I think just added like almost like an energy boost to the work that we were doing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You know, I had a moment where, you know, I woke up the next day and I didn't know where I was. And that's often a sign of rest. I was definitely well rested as well, but also, I mean, just, you know, how things progressed over the weekend. And, you know, one of the things, and I know especially with both of our backgrounds, one things that we, you know, in our cultures that we do very well is hospitality. We take good care of, you know, the community and our people, our family, friends. And it felt good to be there in that space, knowing how groundbreaking a space like that was, but also safe and very, you know, comforted at the same time. Yeah, every part of the stay there was amazing, I think, for me. But it also sort of leads me into the question of, you know, the importance of outsourcing, because I think had each of us been in a strategic planning space where one of us who were, you know, a part of the group was hosting, it would have been a different, you know, story or a different process. But to be in a specific space where everything, all of our needs was taken care of was a great example of what, you know, outsourcing can allow us to do.
Yeah. And I'll also add just that, like, I definitely feel like this would have been a completely different experience had we done this at, like, you know, the conference room of like a Marriott hotel or something like that. There's just a huge impact. And then, yeah, to your point of outsourcing, like, you know, we had Rudy and Wilmer Graham of executive journey coaching, and they really like helped guide us in advance. Like, they wrote us all like an email to fill out like our DISC survey, which I honestly don't know exactly what DISC stands for, but it's essentially a personality not just personality, but how you work and assessment of, and there's like, what was it? Dominant, influencer, or influence, stable or stability, and critical. Is that right?
I think so. Yeah, dominance, influence, correct? Because we had a few S.
Yeah, a lot of SEs.
Yeah, that's one thing definitely that we had a lot of as I'm sitting here.
But yeah, I felt like that was such an important aspect of having somebody kind of guide you through, like, even just the fact of like, we each individually filled this out, and then we arrive and we get to see how everyone around the table like is like how they function, how they work. We got to go around the table and like speak to some of our like things that really make us happy in terms of working, and then things that bring us like anxiety or stress. And it was just really interesting to hear, some of those like things that create stress for people, which I thought it was just really, eye-opening to really understanding how to communicate with people, but also like here are the things that how you can show up for each other, and like where we can fill in the gaps for each other when you're, working in an organization where you don't really work with each other on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I agree. And I just actually found dominance, influence, conscientiousness, and steadiness.
Oh, nice.
There we go. But yes, I thought our Rudy and Wilmer did an amazing job just touching base with us beforehand and actually, having a meeting to really make sure that we understood what was going to take place. They understood, the perspectives and the roles that we're coming from. And to also discuss the DISC assessment, which I think was a perfect setup for how we progressed throughout the weekend in terms of discussing a lot of the strategies and things that we had to, find a solution for and really work together to do some brainstorming. So I thought that was great, knowing being able to know how, like you said, how each of us communicated, and where one DISC assessment type might find more energy and the other may not, and just knowing so we can be supportive for one another.
Yeah. I feel like we, as the CCRE board, so yeah, I will just mention a little bit about who was involved in this retreat. We had some board members that were able to come out, and some volunteers, which I thought was so cool to see. Like, I don't know, just folks that may not necessarily be on the board, but like are invested in this work and found the time to come out. Even Georgina, who like flew all the way from the UK, and you were there, which is awesome. That was my first time meeting you, which I want to know more about how you got involved with the CCRE in a little bit. But yeah, it was just like, it was really beautiful to finally get to see, Muna, who was there in person, August Burns, who I always see through Zoom at our board meetings. Tiffany Johnson lives in Atlanta. So anytime we're there, I try to like connect with her. We, Phyllis, Tiffany, and Georgina and I did a trip to Brazil. So it was really nice to see all three of them in the same place again. Dax, who's also a part of the CCRE board. David Davila came by for I think the first day. And who am I missing? I think that's it, right? Myself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but it was interesting to see how many SCs and CDs and just like stable people were in the room. And it was really fascinating to see how that correlated to the like roles that they took on within the organization as well. Like Muna, for instance, I think is an IS, which is influencer and stable, right? And she like leads the marketing committee, which to me made a lot of sense. And then you have Georgina, Tiffany, myself, and Matt, who I think Matt was like a straight up S.
Yeah.
Georgina was a CS and I'm an SC, and then Tiffany is a CD. And we're all part of the education committee, which also makes sense.
Wow.
We like a lot of that like organizational work and like, keeping structures flowing. And, of course you have Phyllis, I think she was an ID.
Yeah.
Who is the president of and founder of the CCRE. August also, I believe she was an IS. No, she was a ID as well, I believe, or maybe a DI.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
But she's like a pivotal to fundraising, which you kind of need that personality for that. So I don't know. All of that was really interesting to me. And you were also an SC. And what is your role? What role do you take on with the CCRE?
Yeah, so I am a volunteer for the CCRE. And I was actually pleasantly surprised, to be able to meet everyone. I think I had connected with a few of you on like social media just prior to coming to the retreat. And it was interesting to get to know everyone in person by their disc assessment before, anything else. So it kind of gave me like an understanding of, like I said, of how they work in the spaces that they're engaged in and how our time would be together.
Yeah. I also really appreciated how Wilmer like really held us accountable to time. And I don't know, I think that guiding element just takes a lot of stress away from feeling responsible for all of the elements of a strategic planning session. Like I'm currently doing like an annual assessment, and like to have to organize all of our thoughts and think about the whole of something on your own with your partner or just on your own if you're a solopreneur. It's very overwhelming, and to have somebody like help guide you and like help you structure your thoughts and like kind of get to the root of it almost felt like what's the Japanese act of like cleaning out your closet and your home, decluttering. You know what I'm talking about?
I do. I sort of saw a show on Netflix, I think, about it.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, it felt really like joyful to my body and my brain to be like guided and like helping us like kind of break down what is important to us and then see it in a cloud, and then from that decide as a group like where we're going. And like, I think we started in 2020 as an organization, and I think we knew what our goal was and we knew what our purpose was, but to put that into writing and to create a mission out of that, and all of us kind of also learning the ropes of being an organization and a nonprofit, I think we were kind of trying to find our way. And I think by the time that we did the strategic planning, we had enough time under our belts to really have a focus and clear idea of where we wanted to go and how to create that mission statement to really guide us in the future of the CCRE and do that in a way that is like digestible and in a way that is doable within the year.
Yeah.
Which so grateful for that opportunity to experience like what outsourcing strategic planning looks like, especially because they are like, professionals who are doing this, you know, like, like I feel like oftentimes those roles aren't taken seriously or like as much of an asset as they are.
Yeah, and I have actually quite a few years of experience in the human resources nonprofit management field. And so sort of coming into the meeting, as a volunteer, I was, getting familiar with what existed, right? And sort of what we were there to focus on. And at times, throughout the sessions, I found myself, okay, in my head as as I do these organizational assessments of, okay, what's happening, but also wanting to engage. And so just having Rudy and Wilmer there just guiding us, it really, gave me a moment to check in with myself and say, hey, they're here to do that work. You can actually focus on being engaged and asking questions and getting clarity. That's what I could do. And so, that felt, really good, just being able to have that. And then also, Rudy guiding the time, but Wilmer, helping us and guiding us through, a lot of the ideas that we were expressing and reminding us that, hey, we discussed this specific portion of, what we need. We didn't quite get to a solution. How are we going to set up some time in the future to do it?
Yeah.
So just paying close attention to that, where, that sometimes, in meetings, things can get left or forgotten. Having her there just to sort of jot notes down. All right, here's what we're going to try to focus on, or here, we need to take time in the future to come back and address this. That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Because I'm all
hard spot.
because we had 2 or 3 days there, and there was a lot of work to get done. And I think coming into the session knowing that, hey, we're not going to be able to address everything there, but what can we do here that will help us carry, those things forward so that we can come back to it. I think that was important. Yeah.
Yeah. And they really helped create so much like energetic momentum for us. Like, I think we all felt like just ready to like punch through walls. We were like so amped, like, okay, let's go fix this. Like, obviously this is slow work, but it just felt like, I don't know, like a jolt of electricity that just, I don't know. Doing it since 2020, I think it was nice to, I don't know, have a little jump start again.
Yeah. And speaking of, the jolt of energy that, they help to guide us through, just want to take a moment and say thank you to Areli and Little Ways for providing the coffee for the entire stay. Because when we arrived, I was like, oh, the coffee, right? This is a CCRE. Where's the coffee? And Areli comes in like, oh, I got bags on bags on bags, with delicious coffee. So thank you for bringing that and helping us helping to also keep us energized. So
of course, my pleasure. Yeah, that was fun. That was an honor to be able to provide a little bit of that mental energy, body awakening, that juice that we all love so much.
Oh yeah. I'm actually having now in the CCRE mug.
Nice.
I just brewed a cup of the Kenyan.
Oh, I love that coffee so much. I had that this morning too.
Oh, wow.
Shout out to Mbula and to Phyllis for importing that, importing. Yeah, I think that's the beautiful thing about coffee. It's how it brings all of us together. And yeah, we definitely want to see a better industry where there's room for all of us to thrive.
One of the things that I often think about, which is, what I like to talk about a lot with Coffee Liberated, is when you think about history, right, and these special or sacred moments where, our predecessors, civil rights activists, and our ancestors were gathered in rooms at tables, I'd have to imagine that there was coffee present, like sustaining the strategic conversations, right? These essential moments, right? That we can, be here to learn and tell the story of, right? Of how we've come this far. We still have a very good ways to go, but coffee was there, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Think about, like, by hosting, the retreat in that particular place, I think it was spot on.
Yeah, it was.
To bring, such an essential organization there.
Yeah, and that is the beautiful thing about that institute, is that it focuses on, youth and leadership. And the thing that I really like went away feeling energized and feeling just in awe of everyone who is putting energy into this work. I really enjoyed our dinner on the first night, because I think we were supposed to do some strategic planning that night, but I think we kind of did it around the dinner table. And I am really glad that we brought decaf, because we were able to drink some of that decaf as well at night. And I don't know, just kind of get the juices flowing while we were surrounded by these, like, frames of the people who had been in that space and who are keeping this legacy going. And I don't know, just really hearing your story and like how you went to Rwanda and you went to Ethiopia. Like, I just really loved hearing everyone's, like, not origin story, but like, in a way, like how they got involved with coffee and like how coffee has transformed them in whatever shape, form, or fashion. And I really loved hearing from Rudy and Wilmer too, because this isn't their first time at the Gloucester. And I don't know, it just felt really nice being around, for the sake of not making them feel bad. I want to say elders, but like, listen, they were very young at heart, but they just felt like they had so much wisdom to share. And even hearing like Phyllis's story of, like, I hadn't heard these stories before, and like I spent some time with Phyllis on Zoom calls and meetings, and I don't know, I just felt very grateful to be there in that room and hear everyone's stories. And the thing that I took away from Rudy was just always be curious.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of been a theme for me this year. It's curiosity in general, and continuing to keep an open mind and an open heart, especially during these really hard times right now. And I think, that's a huge part of what I also really love and admire about Phyllis, is that, like, she's gone through it, and yet she's always so open to bring everyone to the table. Yeah.
I'd also have to agree. I think that Friday evening I came in, I think if I arrived, and then I think Muna arrived just shortly after me. And so I think I had missed a bit of the conversation, and I was grateful to have the plate set aside of delicious food. Shout out to the chef and the team who kept us well fed. So, but I had met Phyllis through Coffee Black, which is a Black-owned coffee roasting company based in Memphis, Tennessee. And I connected with Coffee Black during the pandemic. And, it just felt like home, just having conversations with them, either online or over the phone. And I was like, I got to go visit. And as soon as I walked into their space, it felt like my grandmother was giving me a big old hug. And so, I've been, connected with them ever since. But as they do so well, is building, a really unique coffee, community. I was connected to Phyllis through Coffee Black. And I was just really curious about her work in Brazil because throughout my own college education, I studied Brazilian Portuguese. And so I had been to Brazil a few times. But the leading research and, the work that she did highlighting, Black owned coffee farms and the families and communities out there, I never knew. And so, we connected and, had some conversation, and I was just like, look, the work that you've been doing is amazing. How can I be a part of this? Like, I want to. And so that's how, I got here. But just that Friday evening, hearing of the stories and, the experiences, the rooms, right?
Yeah.
That she had to endure and be in, just really, it touched me and deeply resonated within, my own work in the philanthropic community here. And so one of my takeaways, and I got this from Wilmer, is and a lot of you there who take on such meaningful work, is to continue to take time out for yourself. Yes, there are a lot of things, that will need to be accomplished, but you have to be accomplished first. So, and you have to be fed. And so, yeah, I'm now making, those extra moments throughout the day to just check in with myself and continue to, make those checklists and be organized so I can be prepared for my loved ones, right? Because it's a good amount of work to do, and that still needs to be done in the coffee industry. Will it take only us? No, I feel like this is building a movement, right? Movement of justice in the coffee industry. And so any way that, I can, really just continue to think about those special moments will feed into a lot of the work that I'm doing here. And I think that's the bigger impact of the roles that we have, even as a volunteer or as a board member of this organization, is connecting this work, doing this work, right, within our own communities and spaces, and just expanding, right, the legacy of, the individuals that met there and at Holly Knoll just before us. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, will be an unforgettable experience for me.
Yeah. I think it's also another thing that I feel like I gained from that experience was just learning how to model, like, how there is room for everyone to speak their truth and to ask questions. And I know Zan, I never mentioned Zan. Sorry, Zan. Zan, you were there.
We love you.
We love you so much. Another SC. Zan mentioned, just like sometimes feeling so frustrated because what she's saying is almost the same thing that the other person's saying, but they're not agreeing. It's Rudy kind of like giving us that guidance of like, before it gets to that frustration and that like, well, I'm just going to shut up then, like everyone, that there is room for everyone to speak what they need to speak into the room. And I don't know, it's just because I also feel like it was predominantly women in that room, and oftentimes feel like we've been taught to, diminish ourselves or make ourselves invisible. And just kind of, for me personally, like relearning how to take up that space and how to do it in a way that is still like mindful and, before getting to that frustration part. I don't remember exactly the words that Rudy said, but I thought it was just, I just remember feeling really impacted by that. Like, I think Zan, at least from where I was sitting, it felt like Zan also gained something from that. So I don't know. It was overall such a great learning experience, and we got a lot out of it as an organization, and highly recommend outsourcing strategic planning for anybody, whether you're a business or an organization or whatever. She's just trying to like figure your life out. There are professionals out there that know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you just mentioned about, the space that was already existed there, and then coming into using that space and having these, strategic planning sessions and, being reminded, even as a new volunteer, I really didn't know, okay, should I say this? Should I ask? I was just trying to, figure out everyone and in the room and, a lot of the work that, was being planned and had been done. And so just really feeling comfortable to ask questions. Like you mentioned, and I think this has something to do with the diagram that Rudy had introduced, which I know it's in my notes somewhere, but it really called attention to what you just mentioned, Areli, and just reminding ourselves of, hey, it's, we're here to discuss, to have conversations, and it's going to be difficult, right? But just knowing that the work that the things that we're asking and, the work that we're doing there's intention here, right? Intention to strategically plan for the future of the organization. So,
yeah. And to have done that intensely in 2 days, I think still blows my mind. But speaks to, just that setting and that environment of like going somewhere. It literally is a retreat. Like you're resting, you're being fed, and you're able to just focus on the work and not anything else.
Yeah, another thing I would also add as far as like the impact of, having or outsourcing, strategic planning is we're there to, to share our stories and to to plan and to go through these sessions, but we're also there to build relationships.
Yeah.
And I think had that time been spent either in a different space, right, like you mentioned, I think a bit of that time would have been diminished.
Yeah.
And I think for me as a new person coming in, that was really important, having the time where we can walk outdoors and have these conversations, to get to know one another and to get to know where, the communities that we're coming from and what we're all engaged in was really important for me.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to you for the work, like for deciding to spend energy and time into volunteering with the CCRE. I feel your impact, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I would say the same thing, and just feeling like you were there to ensure volunteers or even myself had space and felt comfortable and welcomed. And I surely did. So yeah, thank you for that.
Of course. All right. Anything else to add before we give the listeners how to get in touch with you?
Yeah. So there is a question I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yes.
I know I shared a bit about how I came to CCRE and met in Phyllis. How did you get connected to the organization?
Oh, I got connected to Phyllis because I was searching for more women importers. As somebody, I don't know, I feel like as an immigrant woman and a woman of color in the coffee industry in the US, as a green coffee buyer, and especially in the roasting side of things, I really just wanted to find myself and continue to create opportunities to continue to find myself and beyond. And so I was searching for more women importers because I was really thinking about the entire supply stream and wanting to, just uplift women along the supply stream and work with them, because I don't know, when you support women, you're supporting beyond just them. And so I connected with her around 2020, just wanting, like, we had a Zoom call meeting about, how I source coffee and how I wanted to, move forward in my sourcing. And we just had a really beautiful conversation. And then she was like, "Hey, do you want to be a part of the board?" I was like, "Oh, that's not what I called, but sure." And yeah, it's been such a blessing to know Phyllis, both as a human and like an individual on this earth, but also as a coffee professional. Yeah, I was really honored to be asked to be a part of the board, and I've been a part of it since 2020. And I don't know, I felt honored because I felt like she saw something in me. And I always have imposter syndrome, so it's just like, oh, that feels nice. Like that she can see a small business owner like as someone who can help support this cause and this work. And not just that, but like I really appreciate her approach to buying coffee. And like you were saying and mentioning the Black Brazilian program, and beyond, like how do you replicate that in other countries?
Yeah.
So I don't know, for me it's just being intentional and strategic about where we purchase and where we're putting our money, and investing and creating patterns that undo 500-year cycles of harm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, because I think I was curious at the retreat, but I think we had gotten into, so deep into the work that I didn't have an opportunity to act. So thank you for sharing. It's an incredibly fruitful journey. And I think that's one of the things that, Phyllis is really good at is, identifying, those characteristics and our strengths and mirroring it and just saying, hey, you're really good at this. This is what I notice you are. Right.
Yeah. Yep.
A few of us, including myself, also struggle with imposter. Yeah. It shows up at the most random times, but to be able to know that we've been incredibly impacted by, such an amazing Black woman really speaks to, where we are now and the legacy of the work of CCRE.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
LaDora, it's been so fun to do this with you.
It was such a pleasure. And it feels like we were able to reconnect as well, because I know our schedules picked up afterwards and SCA happened and, other, business things happened too. So definitely glad to be in the same cloud space, virtual space with you.
Yeah, ditto. And where can listeners find you and your work?
Yeah, so you all can reach out to me on my socials, Instagram at Coffee Liberated, or if you really, really, really want to talk to me, you can send me a message or an email at coffeeliberated@gmail.com.
Amazing. And for me, you can reach out to me at littlewaves.coffee on Instagram or Areli at littlewaves.coffee via email. And then also, if you're listening and you are interested in getting involved or learning more about the Coffee Coalition for Racial Equity, you can visit the website, which is coffeeforequity.org. And the handle for Instagram is the same, @coffeeforequity.